One of the most universal truths that we humans will have to face and acknowledge within our lifetime is the fact that we will never be able to truly understand the complete thoughts and consciousness of others. Sure, we may have had an electrifying conversation with someone. We could touch others that allows for a resonation into a deeper feeling. And there's a way that we can look and perceive others that allows us to convey understanding and acceptance through the so-called aptly named window to the soul, or the eyes. The yearning for contact is deeply rooted within humanity. And yet, even with the ability to speak to touch, and to listen to others, we are still subjected to our own selves. Still, there is a gnawing within us to be able to transcend to something more, to be able to express the indescribable that can only be felt, that only art can emulate. My experience with art, especially in the field of creative writing and music, stemmed from my need to not only communicate with myself, but with the physical world around me and the people within it to reach a greater level of understanding overall. I grew up as a single child for about 10 years, and within that time, I spent a lot of it wandering and observing about the world around me, from the overhanging trees of my elementary schoolyard to the cracked tile floors of miscellaneous grocery stores. Understanding and accepting these stark realities gives us humans the incentive to use ourselves as a lens to portray our surroundings into our own views, whether that be distilling them down to their barest elements or to be warping them to great escapist ideals. Truly, one of the greatest beauties about art is really in its ability to convey perception. Take a look at this painting by Pablo Picasso, a painting called Guernica, which depicts the horrors of the Spanish Civil War. Within the painting, Picasso only uses variations of gray, perhaps the result of the artist really wanting his audience to concentrate on the harsh figures and lines within the painting rather than color. We can see that in Guernica, human features are deeply distorted and abstract, yet still show desperate pain and misery within their expressions. However, one of the most interesting aspects about this painting is the fact that humans and animals are portrayed on equal footing, not only showing the simultaneous brutalization and dehumanization of all living things during wartime, but also the fact that we share the same primal instinct during the face of fear and death. How Picasso used the own shaping and bending of his style to convey Europe's political instability allows us, as the audience, to be more cognizant and aware about the horrors of war as well. Now let's think about the perception of sounds, especially music. One of the most famous symphonies of all time, Antonio Vivaldi's The Four Seasons, depicts well the artist's interpretations of the Four Seasons through the usage of an orchestra, mainly featuring the violin. Within the Winter Concerto of the symphony, Vivaldi uses high pizzicato strings, perhaps to call to mind an icy rain. And then in the Summer Concerto, Vivaldi uses heavy strings in the last movement to call to mind a storm. Utilizing different techniques of the violin allows Vivaldi to create a scene of what he thinks is as the Four Seasons, which thus allows us as an audience to be taken along in the journey of his interpretations. Now, even with art's ability to convey a specific vision of the artists themselves, how we as an audience understand and react to a piece of art is still individualized and unique to who we are. There is no specific way to correctly categorize how each one of us will understand to a piece of art, as there are many different meanings and elucidations that we all specifically see. In 9th grade, I remember I walked into my creative writing class at the Norton Center of Creative Arts and sat down on the ground, and our teacher passed out a copy of a poem titled Eating Together by Leon Lee. It is shown in the screen above. I'll read that out loud. Eating together. In the steamer is the trout, seasoned with slivers of ginger, 2 sprigs of green onion, and sesame oil. We shall eat it with rice for lunch. Brothers, sister, my mother, who will taste the sweetest meat of the head, holding it deftly between her fingers, the way my father did weeks ago. Then he lay down to sleep like a snow-covered road, winding through pines older than him, without any travelers, and lonely for no one. In the poem, I specifically analyzed it in the way that the last few lines had the greatest impact upon me, in which the father had died. However, my classmate pointed out a completely different aspect of the poem that I did not even realize, in which he specifically said that it now seems the mother has inherited the top of the household, as she now eats the head of the fish. Now, both of our understandings of the poem were completely valid and yet still unique and respective to who we are as a person. Because different parts of art speak to each one of us in a unique manner, art manifests itself through bringing the certain craft of an artist to specifically mold a representation of who we, as our own human beings, want to see and examine. In this way, art works in unseen and mysterious ways, unable to be specifically defined and still powerful and impactful to who we are as human beings. And who we are as human beings is extremely complex, sometimes with our own conscious and subconscious surprising ourselves, perhaps even scaring ourselves with thoughts that may not be morally acceptable or socially lauded. We may have had thoughts of perhaps wanting to take revenge on an ex-girlfriend or ex-boyfriend, or perhaps wishing for the downfall of someone in a competition, or perhaps wanting to take the next available train at midnight and run away from all our responsibilities. Such urges that appear in the recesses of our minds could alarm others, giving us the tough choice of choosing between acceptability and honesty. Within the tough contract of society today, it is hard to always maintain our facade of being completely congruent with society's expectations. However, art allows freedom. Art gives us humans the ability to explore the sides we are hesitant to explore, to allow the dissonance we have between ourselves and outside expectations to be seen and examined. There will always be a certain madness that we humans will have to harbor for being the complex figures that we are, but art is without judgment and discrimination. It is a blank canvas that we can project an incredibly sincere vulnerability and rawness into. There have been whole movements in art dedicated to the irrational and the confounding, such as the Surrealist and the Abstract movement. Take the painting of Salvador Dali's Swans Reflecting Elephants. Within the painting, Dali has created a dreamlike world with magnificent colors that allows the audience to be intrigued and curious by this image. The artist himself said he used a spontaneous method of irrational understanding to bring hallucinatory forms forth to the mass audience. Now let's take a look at the excerpt of Toni Morrison's Beloved. I'm alone, I want to be the two of us, I want to join. I come out of blue water after the bottoms of my feet swim away from me. I come up, I need to find a place to be. The air is heavy, I am not dead, I am not. In this excerpt, Morrison writes in a technique known as stream of consciousness, when she is trying to capture the natural human thought process by incorporating rough grammar, broken syntax, and sensory details. Using and mainstreaming such a non-linear way of descriptions allows us, as our own human beings, to be more cognizant and aware of our stream of thoughts, and to be more accepting of how others think as well. Now, today in society, art has developed throughout many different changes, and we are standing in a world full of fast-paced technology. It is hard to always be aware of who we are, and standing in such a place, there's a lot of things that we need to be aware of that the world has taken away from us. Technology has moved so fast to the point that we are necessarily always caught up in our social media, always caught up in the long hours that the society requires for us in this world. I remember in 9th grade, I spent a lot of my time in freshman year looking at the social media on my Instagram, flipping through pictures of celebrities or Photoshop pictures of ideal figures. Then I decided I needed to take a break from social media. I needed to ground myself back into the real world after watching a documentary on the Realism movement of art. Art returns glamour back to its rightful place, which is simply in the world around us. It allows us to be mindful and reflectful of where we are in the present moment. Take a look at these paintings by these famous artists. Van Gogh allows us to appreciate oranges in a woven basket. Constable allows us to be reflectful of clouds. And Hopper returns us to the glamorous thing that is a lighthouse. Art can continuously bring us back to the areas of value within a world with a distorted perception of what is actually important. Now that we have looked at the many reasons why it's important to study art, why do we as a youth need to continue to cultivate it, to continue to partake in it? Why is it so important that art is out there in the world? Art not only allows us to deepen our understanding, but allows us to deepen our ways of communication. It allows us to deepen our critical thinking skills and to allow us to be more aware of everything that is surrounding us. Also, additionally, as teenagers, cultivating art allows us to be more aware of who we are as our own person, spiritually and intellectually. Today, even though we are in an atmosphere that asks so much of us, that is always pushing us forward, we must remember that art is there to heighten our humanity. It is there to accept us within our hardships and our oddities. It is there to return us to what is actually meaningful in life, which is simply in the world around us, the people around us, and the connections we are trying to build to cut down barriers to the best of our abilities.